Hey, everybody. I am here. Missed yesterday, had an interview that went very, very long. And then it was sort of going to be a rush to stream. And as you know, I like to be prepared. I like to have all sorts of material and things ready to go for you guys. So I decided to take the day off from streaming. I got very, very much caught up. I achieved inbox zero, which was very, very exciting. And I watched a couple episodes of Fauda season three, arguably the best show currently in production, and I do stand by that. At least out of the five shows I watch, and very very exciting evening, as all of you can imagine. What else? I do want to issue a trigger warning. I do think anybody who is triggered by lying, deception, and incompetence will find themselves highly triggered by today's press briefing because we do expect a lot of that. Scheduled to start in about a half hour. Donald Trump tweeting that it was pushed from 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Eastern time, which is about 33 minutes from right now. But that gives us plenty of time to discuss things. I will tell you about my at-home blood test momentarily. But first, let me just read through a few of the super chats that are here waiting for me. It's so great to come in and there's super chats there. It's unbelievable. Jamal Swift, our friend Jamal says, "Hey, homie, I need to hear something positive in order to preserve my mental health. Any light in this tunnel today?" Let me do a little something for you, Jamal. I have a voicemail from someone that I hope becomes a new character on the show, a regular caller. And this is arguably, oh, wait a second. Where is this? Was this yesterday? This is like the sweetest. It could be it could be somebody playing a character, a voice actor, but this is like the sweetest old lady. I'm imagining that her name is Gladys, who called into the show. Every element of this is heartwarming, including the fact that my own show is playing in the background as she talks to me. Check this out. This is nice. I think this will improve all of our moods.
Hey, David. I really love your show, and I do not think Trump is going to worm his way out of this. I just can't even believe that he is such an idiot, and he is running our country. That is just unconscionable to me. Love your show, David.
And then it keeps playing and you just hear my own show in the background. So I love that. I would love to learn her name. For now, we are calling her Gladys. Just a heartwarming call. It seems true to me, and it's just delightful to hear from a sweet old lady. Zachary Foster says Mike Osterholm said on MSNBC that mass PCR testing is no longer an option with the New York antibody tests. Says we need to reopen eventually with younger adults at work and attending events. What are your thoughts? I am increasingly thinking that there's going to have to be a paradigm shift in how we continue to deal with the virus. I have things planned for that, Zachary, so I'm going to get to that. Kevin McComber says, will the stimulus cause inflation? Interview today with Stephanie Kelton on the show about that. I believe the answer is no. Suffragium says, thank you, David. Your show is the only way I can stomach watching our tyrannical president. We are truly living in difficult times. Wash your hands. Kevin McComber says, what can I say to conservatives who say Medicare for all would discourage medical innovation and every other country's relies on our innovation? I mean, it's simply not true. And in fact, much of the innovation, I mean, listen, the internet started with government research. I could go on, but it's just simply untrue. There's no evidence for that. Seth Barham says, hey, David, how concerned are you about civil unrest? Reopening now isn't the answer, but it's going to get ugly if there aren't more cash payments. I've said I was concerned about civil unrest for a while at the beginning of this, and I've sort of been avoiding talking about it because I don't want to give people ideas, but at some point I will have to address it in more detail. I don't think you're crazy for thinking about it, Seth. Bay Photo says, man, yesterday would have been great for a live stream. Trump tried to force the CDC director to walk back his statements. What are your thoughts? Yeah, and the CDC director said he was accurately quoted from what I learned. It's just a shit show. It's a total shit show. Jacob Ratner says, David, do you meditate? Do you see value in it? Yeah, I have phases where I will meditate every day for like 3 months, and then I'll fall out of it, and then I'll get back in. And if I've learned anything, it's to not be judgmental of myself for that happening. That is something I have learned from a any number of great teachers. So yes, I do. Chris K says, I'm triggered by lies. I just can't stop watching. And Charlie says, David, your Bitcoin investment is having a decent day. Oh, I haven't paid attention lately, but yeah, I mean, I definitely upped my oh God, I upped my Bitcoin investment a little. Here's secular talk. Hi, David. My phone hasn't been working, so I thought I would hit you up about voting Biden. I'd really like to have a discussion with you about voting Biden. Are you interested? So that is fake Kyle Kalinske, and I love seeing that in the chat. I'm assuming that is Hugh Jass / Alex Jones / Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell, the first or second. Okay, let's get to some of the things that I wanted to go over with you guys today. Before I do that, I want to say a couple of thank yous. Huge thank you to Dies Often for subscribing with Twitch Prime at twitch.tv / David Pakman. Remember, if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can send me money for free. You're basically taking a little bit of money from Jeff Bezos and giving it to me. Can you imagine a more moral redistribution of wealth than taking a few bucks from Jeff and giving it to the David Pakman Show? So you can subscribe with Prime at twitch.tv / David Pakman. Also want to say thanks to Brogan Van Skoik, who is new member number 1 today at joinpakman.com. Will Petty is new member number 2 today. And Andre Onea is new member number 3 today at joinpakman.com. Okay, let me get into some of the things I wanted to discuss with you guys. Of course, our daily update, 2.7 million is the official number of coronavirus cases globally. 190,000 deaths is the number of coronavirus deaths globally. Things in the United States are not looking particularly good. We are at 876,000 official cases. Info in moments about what the real number might be. And we are very close to 50,000 deaths. So far, we are in a leveling that has gone all the way back to about April 2nd. Now, I want to say something really important. Our growth rate has been 0 since April 2nd in terms of new cases day to day. And this is something that there's a new Israeli op-ed about that I will get to momentarily. Of course, active cases are increasing, but that number is starting to grow less quickly. And deaths, it's not looking great. I mean, again, very, very high death numbers over the last few days. We are essentially in what we would call a plateau that now has lasted about 16 days. So that's that. Good news on testing. We've talked about testing. Actual tests done need to increase. We finally have seen an uptick in the last couple days. Yesterday, we had 311,000 tests in a day. That is by far the most that we've ever done in one day. Now, I don't know why it's so much higher yesterday, but we'll track it. And then today, 193,000 tests. So I do believe that this is the 2-day period during which we have tested the most. Yes, we've tested almost 500,000 people in the last 48 hours. That's good news because we need to be testing. We still need to double. We've got to get to 500,000 a day. That is very, very good news. Okay, there's an article by Isaac Ben Israel in the Times of Israel from Israel. I think it's all cohesive, as you can understand. And this is an assertion, okay? I am agnostic as to whether they're onto something here or not, but I would love to hear from other people. And what this article asserts is that after about 70 days, the growth rate of new cases goes to 0, no matter where it is and no matter what measures the government imposes to try to thwart it. Now, this is really, really important to understand. The article isn't saying that shutdowns, lockdowns, quarantine, social distancing don't have an effect. It's very much the opposite. The article is actually pointing out what you do in terms of measures will lead to more deaths and cases or fewer deaths and cases. But the curve seems to go to growth rate 0 after roughly 70 days. They point out, you can read the article yourself. They point out when you get to new infections per day, you start to get to a period where they are not growing. You get this is a really weird ad right here, by the way. I don't know if people are seeing that. That's extremely strange. Chiropractors baffled. I'm baffled by the ad. Sorry, that was distracting. The point is, you start to get no new case growth. They looked at number of days to double infections, and that starts to grow, meaning that the growth rate is slowing down. They looked at the United States, and you see this trend line that has leveled out. The United States had one set of social distancing measures. They looked at Israel. The absolute numbers are very different, but the trend line is very, very similar. They looked worldwide, and okay, worldwide's a little bit different. They looked at Italy, and you see that it is a little bit different there, but it's a very similar trend line. They looked at Sweden, which has not shut down for young people. The trend line is similar. So we don't yet know what this means. And the article makes some incorrect assertions about what Korea did they just get the policy wrong about what South Korea did, for example. But the very interesting thing about this article is that it is asserting that the growth factor seems to be going to zero at around the 70-day mark. And case in point, I mean, I'd have to backtrack a little bit and think about this, but when you look at cases in the United States, now that we know, okay, so in order to do this, I actually have to go to something else, which is we now have a report that the first coronavirus death in the United States was not February 29. We know of a coronavirus death on February 6. Now backtrack with me, and I'm figuring this out in real time with you guys. If the real first death was February 6th, on average, it's 17 days from symptoms to death. So you go back from February 6th, 17 days, you are at about, let's see, 17, 11, 21, January 20th. Okay. It's roughly 2 to 14 days from infections to symptoms, meaning that the February 6th death likely caught the virus somewhere between January 18 and January 6th. So more than likely, we had coronavirus in the US on January 6th. The person that died on January 6th, according to this article, didn't have a travel history that suggested they got it elsewhere, meaning the person who died on February 6th, who might have gotten the virus as early as January 10th, likely got it in California from somebody else, meaning we had coronavirus in the US in early January, in late December. Okay, that makes, let's just pick January 15. So January to February is about 30 days. February to March is another 30 days. 15th, March 25th would roughly be day number 70. What you see here is that shortly after March 25th, in fact, around April 2nd, the growth rate of cases essentially became zero. Every day we're finding around 30,000 cases. That is what the article from Israel is arguing here. And it seems to be borne out by our data. Now, what this means about policy, I have no idea. I'm not suggesting anything. The article says shutdowns should start to be closed off. I don't know that that's the right policy. Clearly, the policies reduce the total number of cases, the total number of deaths, but the curve seems to have a 70 or 80-day cycle. I don't know. That is what they are asserting there. Very, very interesting for sure. Let me say thank you to some people on Twitch. Donkey Show has gifted a subscription. Son of a Shepherd has subscribed with Prime. I'm Espresso has subscribed with Prime. Mash Nerf has subscribed with Prime. So has Datom Diggity, the CSP, and Quantum Scion. All have subscribed with a Twitch Prime. If you're joining me on Facebook, please remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I have a number of super chats coming in here that I want to read. Charlie, oh no, I already read that. Matthias Germany says, your hair must be so heavy, it destroys your BMI. Yeah, because of my hair, I'm technically obese. That's the crazy thing. Unknown Prodigy says, hey, David, how are you doing today? 1 to 10, 10 being the best. Pretty average day. Average day is pretty good. Maybe a 7.5 or something like that. Yes, it is. But you also, okay. So Secular Talk also has sent messages under the name Anthony Fauci. Madeline Welsh says, refusing to vote for Biden because he's not as good as Bernie seems like an intellectually dishonest position. How can they say the differences between Biden and Trump aren't worth the compromise? You'd have to ask them, Madeline. You'd have to ask them. I don't say that. Shrek says, hey, David, this is my swamp. Okay. Oz says, any news on the Postal Service? Is it still shutting down? It's still at risk of shutting down in early June, although I've not heard anything new. Kevin McComer says, free trade or protectionism, which do you prefer? Way too big of a subject to tackle haphazardly on a stream, but I have any number of clips on my YouTube channel about that, Kevin. Paul Newman says, I promise myself not to watch the insanity of Trump any longer, but I enjoy you more than Trump pushes me off. Am I in a downward spiral? No. Participating in my streams is never a downward spiral. It's an upward spiral. Thanks to Rachel for signing up. Scott Smith says protesters lined the streets outside Governor Whitmer's residence today. The organizer was Brandon Hall. He's a Trumpist and has been convicted of election fraud. Protesters, I believe, were also at Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker's house today. Margaret Wilson, we have a big expose on today's program about how a lot of these protests are actually AstroTurf. Margaret Wilson says no one is talking about how this virus will impact rural areas. Lots of comorbidities. Most doctors are immigrants, especially now with this ban. Yes, rural areas, non-white individuals, a lot of different groups are being disproportionately affected. And we've been talking about some, but not all. I have not talked about the rural stuff quite as much, but I certainly should. Okay, a few other things to look at. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo tweeted today about the results of their first antibody tests. They did samples at 40 locations in 19 counties. Preliminary estimates show a 13.9% infection rate. That's crazy. Now, moreover, look at New York City. 21% of New York City, according to this study, would be extrapolated to have had coronavirus. 21%. So let's do some math. 8.4 million people live in New York City. 21% is about just shy of 1.8 million. That's 12 and a half times the official case rate. 12 and a half times. Now, the more you test, the closer you are to the real test rate. So in California, in LA County, LA is testing way less than New York. In LA County, an antibody test, I think, implied a 20 or 25 time higher case rate than the official rate because California is testing way less. New York is testing more. The interval is smaller, but still this would imply 12 and a half times more people in New York City had the virus. Now, there's a lot of important implications here, and I'll mention a few of them. Number one, if 1.8 million rather than 120,000 or whatever people have had the virus in New York City, it means that the virus spreads much more easily than we believe. Number two, if 1.8 million people have had the virus in New York City, it means it is far less deadly than we would believe if only 120,000 people had had it. Both are important things to bear in mind. Number three, if 1.8 million people of New York City have had the virus, it means that our testing, even in places like New York, which is testing almost more than anybody else, I think the most. In fact, let's take a look. Where is that? Let's see, tests per million. Okay, Rhode Island is at the top, but New York is second. Even testing 35,000 people per million, it means that our testing is nowhere near adequate. And lastly, if 1.8 million people in New York City have had the virus, it means either that they all got infected in February, right? Because New York has been locked down, or the lockdowns may not be that effective. We don't know. I don't know what it means, but certainly if this is accurate, and there's been no shortage of problems with the antibody tests. If this is accurate, it is completely a game changer in terms of our understanding of the virus. And again, if the lockdown does work and somehow 1.8 million people in New York City, more than 20%, got the virus, it means that they had it in February. It must have been around in January. It must have probably been around in December, mostly asymptomatically. We just don't know. And that's the latest from Andrew Cuomo. Stunning, stunning numbers. Also looking at the demographics, slightly more men than women getting it. And that does track with what we've seen globally for a number of different reasons. Only 9% of the people who had it, percent positive by demographic, only 9% of the white population had it. Now, this 22% that says multi, none, or other, uh, I don't know how you can say your race is none. That's a little weird, but that 22% may include, 6 percentage points for white or, whatever. But look at the racial demographics of this. Also, incredible. I think it means maybe multiracial. I don't know how none is weird, but in any case, incredible numbers out of New York City that are upending our understanding of this virus incredibly. Let me say a couple of other thank yous. Mary Ellen Just is new member number 4 today on my website. Kristen Williams is new member number 5. And Tammy Phillips is new member number 6. We are counting patrons as well. I don't want to discriminate. This is not a stream that looks to discriminate. So by popular demand, website members and patrons both count today. Okay, other super chats that are coming in. Let me make sure that I don't miss anybody. Margaret Wilson. Okay, Richard Batello says, David, which stockbroker do you use? I don't use any broker. As many people know, I use Vanguard. Vanguard mutual funds are extremely low cost. Sometimes I'm paying like 4 basis points on some mutual funds. And the few stocks that I hold individually, it's all with Vanguard. They're not an advertiser. It's not a publicly traded company. I have no financial interest whatsoever. That's just who I use. Pine Soul says, my RN wife was exposed at work, got tested. Call came yesterday that she's negative, and also that the test is only 70% accurate. An unfortunate reality. Ms. Smith says, good to see you back this evening. Thanks again for what you do. I see people confused about where these messages are coming from. These are YouTube super chats. You can send yours. There's no pre-qualification necessary to participate. You send a super chat on YouTube and it'll eventually show up in the lower left there. Twitch messages, by the way, show up in that vertical blue box. Like, for example, 10 Gig Nick grabbed the Twitch Prime subscription. Had 10 Gig Nick sent a message, it would have shown up there. Spaghetti Bear did the same. Mean Mr. Mutard did the same, etc., etc. Alex Jones, Huge Ass, and Destiny says, why do you prefer single payer over the public option? I probably have 100 clips about that today, so fortunately for me, I'm not going to allow you to derail the stream. Matty Ice PVD, why is it Massachusetts does well with Republican governors? Arguably because we have a very, very left legislature, state senators and state reps, very left here in Massachusetts. Calvin Smith says, respond to Kyle's invitation for a Biden debate. It's fake, Calvin, it's fake. Kyle would just text me. He would not show up and pay me $10 to ask me that. Kaylin Brooks says, hey, David, have you seen how the mayor of Jacksonville, Lenny Curry, is to $1,000 to residents? I don't know, is giving money to residents? Unfortunately, I don't know what you mean, and I'm not familiar with the policy. AC Kraus says, have you seen the CNBC interview with the German health minister, Jens Spahn, from 10 days ago? Came across it today and found it interesting. Haven't seen it, but I will check it out. MW says the protests in Idaho and other red states are an embarrassment, a disgrace, and purely unpatriotic to all who have died and are currently ill. Samantha Marks has grabbed a beta level membership on YouTube. Andrew Moore says, was your interview yesterday with Joe Rogan? It was not. It was not. Unknown Prodigy says, after listening to Trump, will you still be a 7.5? No, usually whatever my day, somebody earlier asked how my day is going on a scale of 1 to 10. Wherever I am going into one of these press briefings, I usually lose 1.5 points when I come out of the meeting. Speaking, by the way, of losing a point. So sort of as a curiosity, but also because I want to know my vitamin D level from the quarantine. I got an at-home blood test for vitamin D, B12. After watching a 4-hour Joe Rogan debate about B12, I figured, let me test my B12 as well. I ordered an at-home test. And, they said you just use a Lancet, like for diabetic testing of blood sugar. It's really easy and whatever. So I get this kit, and it comes with 4 Lancets. And I'm already like, why would they even include 4? I'm starting to not like the direction that this is going. And brutal brutal. I was first pop, I was barely able to get any blood. Second one, I got a little bit more. And then I had to go back to another finger. I mean, it was just crazy. It probably took me a half hour to get the amount of blood that I needed. And I have to admit, they say don't squeeze the last segment of your finger. I had to do it. And I hope that that doesn't ruin the sample in some way. But I sent it out today and I'll be reporting to everybody. Hopefully by Monday, I would know where am I on vitamin D and where am I on B12. And I am not vegan, but I don't eat pork. I eat very little red meat. And I'm just curious. It was a pack I could have gotten. I think it was like vitamin D for $70 or a pack that included B12 and one or two other things for like $90. I just went with the pack. So we'll see how I'm doing. I'm expecting to score very, very highly on these tests. In fact, it's possible doctors may never have seen numbers so good on these tests we're going to see. And then I'm going to probably take chloroquine and a Z-Pack to see what that does for my vitamin D. Because why the hell not, right? What do you have to lose, to quote our great president? I'm going to have tremendous numbers coming in. Okay, we are probably 5 to 10 minutes from the start of today's press briefing. By the way, nobody's mentioning Z-Pack or chloroquine anymore. I did a couple of segments about that yesterday. Yeah, it's not going particularly well for people trying that. Okay, a few other super chats are coming in. Let's see here. Info Minimal says briefing needs Orange Cassidy and best friend's hug. I just don't know what that means. Stewie Strong says, if Trump gets 4 more years, will you hold up? I mean, I think it'll be better for my show, but bad for the country. And so I'm still voting for Biden in November because it's the right thing to do. Mark Fitzsimmons says, is part of the reason Massachusetts has Republican governors because Democrats don't vote in off-year elections? That's an interesting idea. Turnout in off years may be a factor. I don't know enough about it to say. Sand Snake says, I support your right to protect, but do it from home. Oh, to protest. I'm sorry. To protest, but do it from home. Well, it is harder to protest from home. Heard About It says, what do you think of Richard Rorty? I have no opinion on Richard Rorty. Alex Jones, Huge Ass and Destiny says, who did you moderate in the debate? You will know this weekend, my friend. Eritro Pathak says, debate Sam Cedar. You too classy to vote Bernie lib. Oh, dear. Arbuckle says, OANN equals Orange A-hole News Network. Sorry, I had to. And Walter says, if it becomes reality that the virus isn't as bad as we think as we get more data, doesn't that help Trump since he'll be able to say that he was right, that it was like the flu? Well, what we know for sure is it spreads much more easily than the flu because the antibody tests that are coming in make it abundantly clear that it spreads way more easily than the flu. There will be other questions, the death rate certainly will be a question and we will ultimately get that information. But I don't, listen, the reality is I want to deal with this in a real manner. I'm less concerned about whether it plays into this or that thing that Trump said, because the truth. So I interviewed Rachel Bitecofer this week, and she argues that coronavirus is not really going to play a role in the election in the sense that if you think Trump's doing a good job, you were already a sycophant who was going to vote for him anyway. You're not going to, be pulled over to Trump because he's doing such a good job that you go from being a non-Trumpist to a Trumpist. At the same time, if you were not going to vote for Trump already, you're certainly, it's unlikely that now you are going to be switching votes either. So Rachel Bitecofer argues that the coronavirus thing may not actually play that big of a role in the election. I don't know if I agree or not, but she's pretty clever, pretty smart. And I would certainly consider it very strongly if that's the case. Still having the need for any number of different ladders, always some kind of lighting issue at these press briefings. And it seems that the tech team at the press briefing room is the most masked up group. The camera people running, dealing with lights and that type of thing. But always some kind of tweak there. I'm also seeing, what is this stuff that there's like rope hanging from the ceiling? I hope Trump's not planning to hang anybody today. That would be insane if that happened. Okay. Let me do a 1-minute interlude here, and we've been limiting these to one per stream, and it's been going okay, so I'm going to keep limiting them to one per stream. There's this thing that a lot of people who have YouTube channels, Twitch streams, etc., do, which is you always pretend everything couldn't possibly be going any better, even when it's not true. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bullshit you guys. So I've been clear that because of the virus, in March, we lost 389 paid members. That's a lot for us. That is a lot for us. I'm not going to lie. In April so far, we've probably lost another 250 to 275. It's ugly. Everybody is not everybody. Jeff Bezos is fine, but a lot of people are in sort of a crisis mode. So my ask to you is, consider getting a membership on my website if for you a couple of bucks a month is going to be okay. Because for a total of nearly 600 people over the last 5 weeks, they've had to stop supporting us. So you can go to joinpacman.com. It takes under a minute for the average user of the internet. The coupon code 2020now saves you 66%. And I will thank everybody. 6 people have already done it. And just because I'm throwing it in, if you prefer to sign up on Patreon, patreon.com/David Pakman Show, I will still count it. It counts either way. And we have quadrupled resources on our website to handle people who come in and try to sign up. You guys were crashing the website previously. We've quadrupled our bandwidth on the website, and it should be more than set up to handle all of the traffic you can throw at it. And I will absolutely make sure everybody gets a thank you. By the way, I have very exciting news for you guys. We've seen CBS News reporter Weijia Jiang trigger Trump twice now during the press briefings. She's the one that Trump said, "Who do you work for? Take it easy, take it easy. Lower your voice, lower your voice." Yesterday, he also went at her. She followed me on Twitter, guys. She followed me on Twitter. That's the whole story, but it's very cool. I loved it. Okay, other super chats that are coming in here. Walter says, oh no, sorry, I read that already. Whoop, and now they've all scrolled past here. Alex Jones, Hugh Jass, and Destiny says, I know you can't tell us who was involved in the debate, but tell us when we will know and be able to watch the debate. You will know at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, because that's when we are publishing it. And I will tell you, it is a major, major debate in the battle of socialism versus capitalism. And I believe a huge win in the battle of ideas, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Huge, huge win in the battle of ideas. Donna Williams says, what do you think about a better vetting system for presidential candidates? It's very hard to make anything law. Like if you're suggesting that there should be stricter requirements for being president, it would be legally extremely difficult to add anything because it is constitutionally based, so to speak. Let me say a huge thank you to Rachel Vanderlinde, who is new member number 7 today. Hector Carrillo is new member number 8 today. Joe McDermott is new member number 9. And Raymond Tran is new member number 10 today. I also am going to allow Joe Calfee, who just doubled her Patreon pledge from $5 to $10 a month. We're counting Joy as number 11 today. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Joy. Very much appreciate that. Seth Barham says, if you were president, would you have declared martial law by now? No. And what would motivate you to? I don't know. But the current circumstances don't warrant martial law. That's a major, major step. Sophia Daneshiar has subscribed on YouTube at the soy boy level. Tracy sends a super chat. Connor Brenner says, you think the lights are a Trump vanity thing? I mean, some days Trump looks very orange and some days he doesn't. And every day we see people messing with the lighting in the press briefing room. Maybe that's the connection. Maybe that's what it has to do with. I don't know. Essential says, my rough math. New York State, 13.9% infections makes COVID-19 as deadly as early estimates said, approximately 1%, still 10 times the flu. Yeah, so my calculation was that based on the antibody numbers, the death rate is about 0.8. The flu death rate is 0.15, which makes it about 5 or 6 times that of the flu. We have Dr. Birx coming in. Sadly, Dr. Birx is now a vector of disinformation, a Trumpian vector of disinformation. It's very ugly. No Dr. Birx. No Dr. Fauci again, which is very, very sad. Let me say thank you to Albert Smedley, who's new member number 12 today. Joel Harris is new member number 13. Logan Carter is new member number 14. And Hugo Richards is new member number 15 today. Thanks so much, guys. I so appreciate that. And during the stream, the bar will continue to be raised, so to speak. When we get started, I will switch over from the Fox feed to the C-SPAN feed. The C-SPAN feed is better in a number of ways, better camera angles. They show the reporters. They just start about 15 seconds late. So I'm going to ask that you bear with me when we start. We are going to fall back about 15 seconds, but I promise you that it's all worth it to be able to have the better produced version that C-SPAN puts together. Jim W. has subscribed on YouTube. Gonzo Lude says, ICP manages to be more rational than our government by canceling gathering of the Juggalos this year, so not one Juggalo life is lost. I saw that. I really don't care for Insane Clown Posse's music, but they made the right, responsible decision, and they must be praised for that. Huge thank you to Tavuz Kasu, who has subscribed with Twitch Prime. Also, The Freak has subscribed with Twitch Prime with the message, hey, hey, David P. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Alan Cave says, can you interview a local researcher, Tufts, Boston College, Boston University, to talk more about race inequality and COVID? That's a good idea. We will look into that. Janet Hunter has subscribed on YouTube. Whoa. Vintage Item Store says, if unemployment goes up, will Trump lose voters? It's possible. All right, let's get started here. We are over on the C-SPAN feed, which is a beautiful feed. In fact, it's my preferred feed. And we are about 10, 15 seconds behind the Fox News feed, but it's going to be very, very much worth it. As in comes Donald Trump, there he is. Mike Pence as well, followed by, I guess, a Secret Service guy.
Thank you very much. Later this evening, we expect the House to pass Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act. I'm grateful that Congress is answering my call to deliver these additional $320 billion in relief for the American worker and for small businesses. At a time when many Americans are enduring significant economic challenges, this bill will help small businesses to keep millions of workers on the payroll. You see, states are starting to open up now, and it's very exciting to see. I think it's very awe-inspiring. We're coming out of it, and we're coming out of it well. And I'm very happy the governors really have been doing a really good job working with us, and it's really pretty impressive to see. I've spoken to numerous leaders of countries over the last 48 hours, and they are saying we're leading the way. We're really leading the way in so many different ways.
Highly doubt they're saying that.
Well, I'm also very pleased that Harvard, as you know, Harvard and Stanford and Princeton and numerous other universities and colleges, and also large businesses have
a lot of slurring.
Sent funds back to us, and in some cases I stopped funds that I looked at, and we are pleased to report that the funds have either not gone out, or it's about $350 million, and they've either not gone out, or we've renegotiated it, and they're not getting them. So in a couple of cases, they're sending them back immediately. So I think it was very nice. I want to thank Harvard in particular. They acted very quickly and decisively. And they agreed when they heard the facts that they should not be getting it. So we appreciate it very much from Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and other institutions. The bill also includes $30 billion to support small lending institutions serving distressed communities, helping countless African American and Hispanic American small businesses. As we continue our battle against the virus, the data and facts on the ground suggest that we're making great progress. In 23 states, new cases have declined in the peak week. 40% of American counties have also seen a rapid decline in new cases. 46 states report a drop in patients showing coronavirus-like symptoms. That's a big number. To keep America gaining momentum, every citizen needs to maintain the vigilance, and we all understand that very well. We've gone over it many, many times. This includes practicing good hygiene, maintaining social distance, and the voluntary use of face covering. A safe and phased reopening of our economy. It's very exciting, but it does not mean that we are letting down our guard at all in any way. On the contrary, continued diligence is an essential part of our strategy to get our country back to work, to take our country back. We're winning this, and we're going to win it, and we're going to keep watching. And we're going to watch very closely for the invisible enemy.
This is meaningless stuff.
With each passing day, we're learning more and more about this enemy. The scientists at DHS have released a report offering a number of insights about how the virus reacts to different temperatures, climates, and surfaces. The findings confirm that the virus survives better in colder and drier environments and does less well in warmer and more humid environments. I have to say that very excitingly, we're going to have somebody up. Bill will be up in just a little while. It was a great report you gave, and he's going to be talking about how the virus reacts in sunlight. You really hear the numbers, you won't even believe them. U.S. trials of the COVID-19 have been going on and have been approved.
Trials of the COVID-19. I think he means the vaccine.
China, that's big news. And a lot of trials are going on, and we have a lot of great, brilliant minds working on this.
Making no
both
sense.
From the standpoint of vaccine and therapeutics. We must be careful in all conditions, but we will get this done. We're very close to a vaccine. Unfortunately, we're not very close to testing, because when the testing starts, it takes a period of time, but we'll get it done. And I want to thank the head of DHS Science and Technology, Bill Bryan, for what he's going to be doing and what he's going to be saying, and the report that he's about to give. I think it's going to be something that nobody's ever heard. It'll be brand new information.
The temperature stuff has actually, I've talked to you guys about it. You would know about it from 3 weeks ago. It is interesting stuff.
Act to dramatically increase the manufacture and delivery of critical medical supplies. We finalized 3 contracts to produce 39 million more N95 masks in 90 days. And as you know, we're also using a sterilization process, some great equipment that will sterilize the masks up to 20 times per mask. So that's like ordering 20 times more masks. And it's working very well. We just want the hospitals and the institutions where it is to use it. A lot of people don't use it. They're so used to getting a new mask, they don't want to use it. They want to go and immediately get a new one. We're asking them to use the sterilization process. Every bit as good, up to 20 times, think of that. In addition to ramping up our domestic assembly lines, we also have airlifted nearly 750 million pieces of personal protective equipment into the United States through our Project Airbridge, which has been an incredible thing to watch. It's really a military operation.
Pence loves talking about
that. The Vice President is now providing each governor with an exhaustive count-by-county breakdown of the privately distributed personal protection. And this is equipment and things that are incredible. It's personal protective equipment. It's incredible, and it's all brand new and at the highest level. We're getting only the highest level.
Visibly struggling to
and
read.
Also, we're looking at essential gear within their states, and it's being delivered to different states quickly and as we speak. This way, the governors should know exactly what's being delivered through a private sector supply chain within their states, as well as through the Project Airbridge. We're trying to get it immediately from the plane to the state. When we can't do that, we bring it into our facilities and get it to the governors. And we're getting them fast, and we're notifying them very strongly so they know it's there. Governors can use this information to quickly ensure that they get materials where and when they are needed. Today, I also want to extend my special thanks to our nation's incredible county emergency management teams, who have been working relentlessly for weeks around the clock, end on end, to serve their communities, help distribute critical supplies, and save countless American lives. We salute these heroic officials on the front lines. as we continue to develop potential therapies, the FDA has recently begun a national effort to expand access to convalescent plasma donated from the blood of those who have
I like when he
recovered
calls it
from the
plasma.
virus. The blood of these donors contains antibodies that can potentially reduce the severity of the illness in those who are sick, and frankly, those that are very sick. Nearly 3,000 patients are now enrolled in the expanded access program receiving transfusions nationwide. And I want to thank all of the people that recovered for what they've done. They, as I said yesterday, they raise their hand when they barely can walk, and they're saying, I want to donate blood, I want to donate whatever it is that you want, because
Plasma.
we want to help people. It's really quite incredible. Convalescent plasma will also be used to manufacture a concentrated antibody treatment that does not have to be matched with a particular blood type. This concentrated antibody treatment could be used as a preventative measure to keep healthcare workers and other high-risk populations from contracting the virus in the first place. Very big deal. Clinical trials of these products are slated to begin within weeks, and we can maybe have a fairly quick solution. I urge Americans to get in there and keep doing what you're doing, because, again, we want those people recovering or recovered from coronavirus to contact their local blood and plasma donation center to learn how they can help. And they've been so great, and I just appreciate it. My administration has also partnered with leading, and we have really been establishing some great partnerships with leading technology companies and scientific journals to create a database of 52,000 scholarly articles on the virus that can be analyzed by artificial intelligence. Top AI experts are now using this wealth of data to gain insights into potential therapies. And we're collaborating with tech firms, universities, and our national labs to harness American supercomputers in the search for treatments and vaccines. That search is going on, and it's being, I think you'll see in the future, you'll see it's very successful. Ultimately, it'll be a tremendous success. Great progress is being made at a rapid pace, a pace like no other. We have every hope that with the full might and resources of American science and technology, and with the courage and devotion of the American people who have been so incredible, we will end this plague, and together we will restore the full measure of American strength and power and prosperity. Our country is going to do fantastically well. You see what's going on.
Yeah, 4 million more people lost their jobs.
Up demand in our country to get it back right where it was, and maybe even better, and that's what's going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask Mike Pence to come up, Vice President. Say a few words, please, Mike.
So we mute Pence because he contributes nothing of value, and it's weaponized disinformation. So I mute Pence. I do want to hear the stuff about the temperature and humidity, because of course Trump is going to pretend like this is something he came up with or he thought. I mean, this has nothing to do with Trump, but there are a number of papers that look at the combination of temperature and humidity and its effect on the virus. There's a question of sunlight and UV rays and its effect on the virus. There may be something to that. It's not a miracle, but if the contagion, if the facility of contagion goes down even a little bit because of changes to temperature and humidity, those changes become cumulative. And it can make a real difference. And this is part of why, in areas where the flu is seasonal, why it is seasonal. And I actually am really looking forward to hearing what they have to say about that. Just out of curiosity, no, we're muting Pence. He says nothing of value, but I'm going to check in and see if he's doing his usual sycophancy.
Down, saving lives. Our task force actually believes, Mr. President, that if we can...
Yeah, it's exactly what we thought. So yeah, he's doing it. So don't worry, we'll go back when important things happen. I do want to say thanks to Daniel Smeltzer, who is new member number 28 today, and Eric Feist, who is new member number 29. You folks are all much more of a pleasure to listen to than is the vice president here. Tomorrow on the show, I got a bunch of people who emailed me about the Las Vegas mayor being interviewed by Anderson Cooper, and it's a complete and total mess. And I reviewed the video, and it is indeed a complete and total mess. And I'm going to be talking about that on tomorrow's program, and we'll have a clip about that Probably Friday, Saturday. It'll be published on YouTube. It's really crazy. And I even had it here. We could have looked at it. I don't. I want to make sure that I'm here for when Mike Pence is done talking. But it is really, really crazy. The other thing on treatments that Donald Trump is talking about. Obviously, you've all probably noticed by now that Trump is no longer talking about chloroquine. Chloroquine is something he was promoting early, like a miracle drug. Dr. Oz was talking about it on Fox News. We were here, all sorts of people. Fox and Friends was talking about it. For the last week, we've had study after study say it doesn't seem to be helping, and people may even be dying at a higher rate when they are given a chloroquine regimen when they have coronavirus, with or without the Z-Pack, different modalities, as Donald Trump has been saying. We don't hear them talk about chloroquine anymore. It's like it doesn't exist anymore. And unfortunately, the latest remdesivir test, which is a drug made by Gilead Sciences, the latest test I saw with that also didn't go particularly well. So I still have a cautious optimism that by the fall, we are going to have some therapeutic that works okay, at least. It's just not clear what it's going to be. Ativan, also known as Favipiravir, which is a Japanese drug, is being tested. Maybe there's something there. There's a combination of two HIV medications being tested. That's interesting. There's the idea of it is being tested, the polio vaccine and the tuberculosis vaccine. The idea is not that they might vaccinate you against coronavirus, but the idea is they might cause the exact type of immune response that might reduce the likelihood of you contracting coronavirus. So those are being looked at. And then there's a whole bunch of other things under development and other things being considered. There's a ton of this stuff. And so the responsible thing from the beginning would have been for Donald Trump never to kind of emotionally get behind one drug. But to say, hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're trying, you would have had fewer people going out and trying to obtain chloroquine. You likely would have had fewer of the tragic side effect related incidents that we've had, which have been very, very ugly. I want to say thanks to Colby Barrett. Colby Barrett is new member number 30 today at joinpacman.com. Thanks, Colby. I very much appreciate it. Trump has already spoken. As a matter of policy, we mute Mike Pence because he's just so vile and toxic and says the exact same thing every day. But we are expecting next a briefing about the possible impact of temperature and humidity changes in the United States on the virus. And that is a very interesting thing. Now, very early, Donald Trump said something like, when it gets warm, this will disappear. We had no evidence of that at the time, and I've still seen no evidence of that. What we do have some early studies suggesting is that as the country warms, both the temperature and humidity, but also potentially the additional UV light from the sunlight, may all be detrimental to the virus's ability to survive. And that would be a really great thing, again, as a respite until the fall, at which time every serious epidemiologist, including Dr. Fauci, infectious disease expert, is expecting a wave 2. Wave 2 sometimes is as bad or worse as wave 1. And the coronavirus wave 1 started late in the flu season, late December, early January by our best estimates right now. That probably helped this first wave not be as bad. The second wave, which again will almost certainly happen, could be even worse. And that's why we need to be able to much more quickly put measures in place, hopefully have an early emergency use vaccine for healthcare workers by October. That's a possibility if things go well. It's a real possibility. Won't be widespread availability, but for healthcare workers on an emergency basis. And hopefully having some kind of treatment that by then has been shown to be relatively efficacious with reasonable side effects. Because some of the ones being tested so far, including Trump's favorite chloroquine, significant side effects so far. Super chats are coming in. Chris is asking whether other countries are having successes with vaccines or therapies. Yeah, other countries are seeing very similar things to what we are seeing. There are dozens and dozens of vaccines under development globally right now. And to say successes, I mean, other countries are investigating a lot of the same things that we are. Geshmake says Bueller. Yes. Christopher Click says, yet Ashford Hospitality, a major Trump donor, pockets $30 million in PPP funds after terminating or furloughing 95% of their 7,000 employees. Yeah, there's the idea that the Harvard thing, making Harvard give the money back, that it's essentially a distraction tactic to take attention away from tons of less well-known organizations and companies that have received money that arguably should not have. That's the idea that's floating around. Black Mac Miller says, hey, David, how much do you read a day? I read at least 25 pages of a nonfiction book, usually closer to 40. And then I also at night will read some fiction book that I'm reading, probably another 25 pages or so. So my daily reading, it's not what I would like, but it's probably between 40 and 75 pages on average, in some kind of average sense. As we wait for Mike Pence to finish up here, I also want to thank Linda Short for signing up at joinpacman.com. Linda, you are new member number 31 today. 31. A terrific number, absolutely terrific number. And I really appreciate everybody who's been signing up and supporting. Let's check in on Pence. He should be winding down. Trump doesn't really like him going this long usually.
Last few days that will consist of 4 phases and require specific criteria that Idaho and businesses need to meet to begin to reopen.
Oh, he's wrapping.
Mr. President, with the guidelines to open up America again, states are making plans. And at your direction, our task force will continue to work very closely, providing them with the data, providing them with the resources to be able to implement those plans.
So to summarize this, states will soon open, masks, air bridge, scheduled flights, leadership. Thank you.
Progress that we are seeing is a testament to what all of you have done, to our extraordinary healthcare workers. A partnership between the federal government and to state and local official. And I'm confident it's also owing to the prayers of millions of Americans each and every day. All of that combined, we're slowing the spread. We're protecting the most vulnerable. We're saving lives. And every single day, we are one day closer to opening up America again. With that, Mr. President, I'd be pleased to call Bill forward.
Yes, that's what we want. All right,
Bill
I'm going to be
Bryant
listening very closely.
leads the Science and Technology Directorate at the Department of Homeland Security, and now will make a presentation on their recent study.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you,
Let's
Mr.
listen
President,
up here.
for this opportunity to do this today. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Bryant, and I lead the Science and Technology Directorate at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Over the last several months, we've intensified the department's R&D efforts to identify and deliver information that informs our response to COVID-19. S&T is working to identify, develop, deploy the tools and information to support our response to this crisis. As part of our efforts, we're leveraging the unique capabilities of S&T's National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center to study the biology of the COVID-19 virus.
This may be worse than I expected. I don't know.
A biocontainment laboratory located in Frederick, Maryland. It was established in the early 2000s in response to the Amerithrax attacks, and where we study, characterize, analyze, and develop countermeasures for biological threats to the homeland. We work closely with the CDC, FDA, HHS, and also our Department of Defense colleagues and many others.
Right.
Yesterday, I shared the emerging results of our work that we're doing now with the Coronavirus Task Force. And today, I would like to share certain trends that we believe are important. If I may have the first slide, please. And while that's coming up, our most striking observation to date is the powerful effect that solar light appears to have on killing the virus, both surfaces and in the air. We've seen a similar effect with both temperature and humidity as well, where increasing the temperature and humidity, or both, is generally less favorable to the virus. So let me illustrate with this first slide. If you look to the right, you'll see that term half-life with a bunch of time stamps on there. First, let me tell you what a half-life is. We don't measure the virus as far as how long will it live on a surface. We have to measure the decay of the virus in terms of its half-life, because we don't know certain elements. We don't know how much a person expectorates when he spits, right? When he sneezes, whatever the case may be. We don't know how much a virus is in there. So that has a bearing on how long the virus is going to be alive and active. So we measure it in half-life, because half-life doesn't change. So if you look at an 18-hour half-life, what you're basically saying is that every 18 hours, the life of the virus is cut in half. So if you start with 1,000 particles of the virus, in 18 hours, you're down to 500. In 18 hours after that, you're down to 250, and so on and so forth. That's important as I explain the rest of the chart. If you look at the first 3 lines, when you see the word surface, we're talking about non-porous surfaces, door handles, stainless steel. And if you look at as the temperature increases and as the humidity increases, with no sun involved, you can see how drastically the half-life goes down on that virus. So the virus is dying at a much more rapid pace just from exposure to higher temperatures and just from exposure to humidity. If you look at the 4th line, you inject the sunlight into that, you inject UV rays into that. The same effects on line 2 at 70 to 75 degrees with 80% humidity
Chart, please.
on the surface, and look at line 4, but now you
This
inject
could explain why things are so crazy in Massachusetts, despite all the measures we're taking. And assuming Florida's telling the truth, it's not as bad there. This could actually be a big factor in it.
unique capability. I was discussing this with the president prior to coming out. He wanted me to convey it to you on how we do this. I believe we're the only lab in the country that has this capability. But if you can imagine a Home Depot bucket, a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket, we're able to take a particle, and this was developed and designed by our folks at the NBAC. We're able to take a particle of the virus and suspend it in the air inside of this drum and hit it with various temperatures, various humidity levels, multiple different kinds of environmental conditions to include sunlight. And we're able to measure the decay of that virus while it's suspended in the air. This is how we do our aerosol testing. We worked with Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, and we actually developed a larger drum to do actually more testing, and it's 4 times the size of that. So this is the capability that we bring to this effort. So in summary, within the conditions we've tested to date, the virus in droplets of saliva survives best in indoors and dry conditions. The virus does not survive as well in droplets of saliva, and that's important because a lot of testing being done is not necessarily being done, number 1, with the COVID-19 virus, and number 2, in saliva or respiratory fluids. And thirdly, the virus dies the quickest in the presence of direct sunlight under these conditions. And when you look at that chart, look at the aerosol as you breathe it. You put it in a room, 70 to 75 degrees, 20% humidity, low humidity. It lasts, half-life is about an hour. But you get outside and it cuts down to a minute and a half. Very significant difference when it gets hit with UV rays.
Huge if true.
Mr. President, while there are many unknown links in the COVID-19 transmission chain, we believe these trends can support practical decision-making to lower the risks associated with the virus. If I could have my next slide, and while that comes up, you'll see a number of some practical applications. For example, increasing the temperature and humidity of potentially contaminated indoor spaces appears to reduce the stability of the virus. And extra care may be warranted for dry environments that do not have exposure to solar light. We're also testing disinfectants readily available. We've tested bleach, we've tested isopropyl alcohol on the virus, specifically in saliva or in respiratory fluids. And I can tell you that bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds, and that's with no manipulation, no rubbing, just spraying it on and leaving it go. You rub it and it goes away even faster. We're also looking at other disinfectants, specifically looking at the COVID-19 virus in saliva. This is not the end of our work as we continue to characterize this virus and integrate our findings into practical applications to mitigate exposure and transmission. I would like to thank the President, thank the Vice President for their ongoing support.
Good presentation. I just want to remind you guys, I talked about this 2 weeks ago. This is not new information, but you know, Trump, of course, loves to act as if this is all breaking news.
R&D community. Thank you very much.
Brian. Mr. Brian.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask Bill a question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that has him in check, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way.
Tanning bed.
And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute.
Burks,
And is
this
there a way
is too
we can
dumb
do something
even for
like
Burks.
that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs.
Yeah,
So it'd be
Lysol your
interesting to
lungs.
check
Great
that.
idea.
So that you're
Use-
going to have to use medical doctors with. But
We're
it sounds interesting to
Oh my
me.
God.
So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful. Steve, please.
You say that the country will be in a better place by early summer. Does that mean you're going to need to extend the social distancing guidelines until then?
Well, we may, and we may go beyond that. We're going to have to see where it is. And I think people are going to know. You're going to know. I'm going to know. I think people are going to know just out of common sense. At some point, we won't have to do that. But until we feel it's safe, we're going to be extending.
You have 23 cases where 23 states where new cases are on decline. What does that mean about when the country can be safely reopened to a more normal point?
Yeah, but it means we're going to watch those cases very carefully. I think we've all gotten very good at it. We've gotten good at tracing. We see where the cases are, where they're going, and we're going to be watching it, and it's called containment. At a certain point, we're going to be able to contain. And, when you see this, a lot of people have been talking about summer. Maybe this is one of the reasons. I once mentioned that maybe it does go away with heat and light, and people didn't like that statement very much.
Yeah, that was the problem. Oh my God.
The fake news didn't like it at all, and I just threw it out as a suggestion. But it seems like
It
that's
wasn't.
the case.
So he's lying. He said it'll go away with the summer, nothing to worry about. It was the part of the defense of doing nothing for a whole bunch of time.
Dies very quickly with the sun. Yeah, go ahead.
You said yesterday that you're going to look into Senator McConnell's suggestion for allowing states to declare bankruptcy versus the aid.
Yeah, we'll look into it, and I have been looking into it. I've been talking to a lot of the different senators, but I don't want to talk about it now. That was a very interesting presentation. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I wanted to talk about McConnell's suggestion that aid to the states amounts to a
I just
blue-
told you I'm not talking about it
to a
now. I'll
blue-
talk about it later. I'd like to talk about something that right now is of more interest to
Could
people.
I ask Mr. Bryan a question?
Yeah, sure.
Dear God.
Thank you. When you started your presentation, you described this as an emerging result. Does this mean your study is conclusive? Is there more work to do?
We're continuing with that. For example, on the aerosol side, you notice the figures were 20% humidity. We're looking at higher humidity levels. We would expect that would even have a greater impact on the virus. We're looking at other types of disinfectants. And so we're as a scientific community, we're continuing to study the virus to understand its characteristics.
And is,
Mr. Bryan, can you explain why
Ooh,
some
Ira.
hot spots we've seen in the U.S. are hot and humid, like New Orleans, for example?
Let me explain. If you look at the coronavirus as a chain with many links, what we've done through our study is we've identified some of the weak links in that chain that the transmission of the virus depends upon. We identified that heat and humidity is a weakness in that chain. We've identified that sunlight, solar light, UV rays is a weakness in that chain. That doesn't take away the other activities, the guidance from the White House, the guidance from the CDC and others on the actions and steps that people need to take to protect themselves. This is just another tool in our tool belt, right? Another weapon in the fight that we can add to it. And in the summer, we know that summer-like conditions are going to create an environment where the transmission can be decreased, and that's an opportunity for us to get ahead.
But the president mentioned the idea of cleaners, like the bleach and isopropyl alcohol you mentioned. There's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there? I mean,
No, I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study. We don't do that.
Of course,
within
you're
that
not going
lab,
to
our labs.
inject bleach.
So how do you,
It wouldn't be through injection. We're talking about through almost a cleaning, sterilization of an area. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but
No,
it
injecting
certainly has
bleach
a
is
big
not gonna work.
Effect if it's on a stationary object.
okay.
so how do
Are
you,
we simplifying too much by saying that it'd be better with the warmer weather and the sun coming out more and more, that people would be outside than staying inside their home, confined into the four walls of their house?
It would be irresponsible for us to say that we feel that the summer is just going to totally kill the virus and that if it's a free-for-all and that people ignore those guides. That is not the case. We have an opportunity, though, to get ahead with what we know now and factor that into the decision makings for what opens and what doesn't.
Right.
So-
But he's saying on surfaces, the heat, the hot summer, and whatever other conditions, humidity and lack of humidity, that would have an impact. So that on surfaces where it can be picked up,
Now, what's not being mentioned is what percentage of this is being transmitted through surfaces, and it's suspected that it's not that much. Most of the transmission is not happening because someone touched something, and then I come an hour later and I touch it. It doesn't seem like that's the majority of the transmission. This entire conversation mostly deals with that.
it could still be there, right? It has to be in direct light of the UV rays.
With the sun, if it's on somebody's hands, right? And they haven't touched their face and all of the things.
And it's
that we've
exposed to
opened.
the sun, it'll.
I know, but if they're outside, right, and their hands are exposed to the sun, will that kill it as though it were on a piece of metal or something else?
Not, I don't want to say it will at the same rate, because it's a non-porous surface, but what we do know
Skin is very different.
that we looked at the worst-case scenario, and the virus lives longer on non-porous surfaces. So porous surfaces, it doesn't live quite as long. So in theory, what you said is correct.
This is sort of semi-non-porous, right? This is right?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, yes, yes.
How should Mr. Ryan to do this?
Wait. Okay.
Mr. Ryan, how should governors who are opening their states, working on that, incorporate the findings of this study into those guidelines?
I would leave that up to the governors. This is a decision, this factors into their decision process. As I mentioned, with knowing this knowledge and having this knowledge, as we continue to study and further know what the virus does and how it reacts, it could impact the way a governor will look at what he opens in a state, how he opens it, in what environments these things are opened up. But I leave that up to the governors to make that decision. How they incorporate it.
Obviously, at the moment, the advice is stay at home. By the summer, could we be flipping that and saying you'd be much better off being outside with UV rays, all the humidity that Washington brings in August?
I would not go contrary to the guidance that have been issued right now. I think, though, to tell you that if I'm having an event with my family, I'm doing it in the driveway or in the backyard, not inside the house with my children.
In fact, I'm thinking about moving outside to the rose garden. No, it's a very interesting question, actually. Okay, please.
Mr. Ryan, how much more research, how much more time would it take to have conclusive results that could be used to
Years.
study for emerging
Many
results?
years.
We first were able to receive the virus back in February is when we started testing. And it is a science-based approach. Science is a process. The doctor can attest to that. It doesn't necessarily line up with goals and targets and other things. It is what it is. But we are now starting to get results. And we're every week or 2 weeks, we're starting to find out something new and something different. And in talking to the task force and the vice president, he's already asked us to come to him every time we come up with some new discoveries that we could share to the public.
Phil?
Yeah, sir, have you compared notes with your counterparts in other foreign governments or in private industry who might have been studying the same thing, and do their findings show the same result that you found here?
We do have a very good partnership with a lot of our allies. We work closely with them on this particular topic. We actually authored a document called the Master Questions List. If you go to DHS S&T's website, we've already had about 17,000 hits on this document. It actually outlines what all the countries in the world are doing to fill the certain gaps of knowledge that don't exist within the virus, and what we do know, and that is really what targets and drives the science community to say, okay, what don't we know now, so we don't duplicate what other people have done. So we've championed that document. It's well referenced, and I would encourage you to look at that.
And we are working with other countries on vaccines, as you know. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mr. President. If there is a summer ebb with this virus, what would the federal government need to do to take advantage of that time?
Say it at the beginning, right?
Oh, so if there is a summer sort of ebb with this virus, what would the federal
know what
government
ebb
need to do to take advantage of that time to be better prepared for a possible resurgence in the fall than we were the first
Well,
time
I'll tell you
around?
one thing. I think a lot of people are going to go outside all of a sudden. People that didn't want to go outside, they'll be going. To me, this was really a very interesting meeting. We covered it in great detail.
Yeah.
And these are incredible people.
Dear God.
At that. We could call it a laboratory because that's essentially what it is. It's
What's
a super
going on is
laboratory.
Trump doesn't
It's
know
a
the
lot of
meaning of
things
the
going
word
on.
ebb, so he's having to just dance around.
Interesting things going on in that laboratory. Yeah.
What would you and other areas of the government need to do on testing, for example, or other things like that to be prepared if it came back in the fall? How would you take advantage of the summer?
It's actually a very good question. It's something the task force already has
They had to
begun
bring in pens, yeah.
discussing, that we are, if a combination of factors, let me say again, as states put into practice the guidelines to open up America again, implement safe and responsible plans to open up their economies along the lines that the president unveiled a week ago today. As people continue to properly exercise social distancing as is recommended in each phase, that in combination with some of these findings could well give us a summer respite from the coronavirus. And our team is already speaking about working on a continuous basis through this summer Every single day, we're increasing testing. Every single day, air bridge flights are coming into the country. I can promise you at the President's direction, there will be no
So testing's a lie. In the last 2 days, testing did go up, but we had most of April during which it did not. It essentially stayed steady.
Effective supplies for medical personnel. There'll be no letting up on the development of therapeutics by our great pharmaceutical companies or driving toward a vaccine as soon as it is possible to make available to the public. There'll be no letting up on continuing to scale testing, already more than anyone in the world, but by
Not
next
per
fall
capita.
we'll have a broad range of testing, a variety of different means. And that's why we say
Any
with
flavored test
confidence
you want,
that
you can get.
should the coronavirus reemerge at any point next fall or next winter, we will be prepared to deal with it, identify it, do the contact tracing and isolation to ensure that
We're not currently
that we
prepared,
deal with this
but hopefully we will
epidemic,
be by then.
in the manner that we deal with infectious diseases.
Okay.
Mr. President, on the subject of medical research, why have you stopped promoting
I
hydroxychloroquine as a
haven't at all.
cure?
I haven't at all. What do you say I have? We'll see what happens. We've had a lot of very good results, and we had some results that perhaps
Who
aren't
is
so
that
good.
guy?
I don't know. I just read about one, but I also read many times good. So I haven't
You
at
read
all.
good.
And it's a great for malaria, for lupus, for other things.
Right, it's
and
great for
we'll
those.
see what it is. But
We
I
always
guess,
knew that.
Deborah, they have many studies going on that, so we'll be able to learn.
Looked at the veteran study that shows that
I have not.
the
I
death
haven't
rate is
seen it.
higher.
I have not seen it.
He's
Go ahead,
previously
please.
admitted he hasn't
President,
seen it.
we're now over 26 million
That guy's
new
Who was
jobless
that?
claims over 5 weeks.
Yeah.
How the Vice President talked about this summer getting better, but what do your economists tell you about the time it's going to take to you in the U.S. to create
Well, I know
those
a
jobs
lot
back?
about economists.
August,
Yeah.
September,
Sure.
October.
Well, let me go. We know the rest of the question, right? So I know a lot about economists, and the answer is they have no idea. I think I have as good an idea as anybody, and I think our economy will start to pick up very substantially as soon as the states get
Trump
open.
is right that economists are terrible at predictions. Whether he's any better, I don't know. But economists are very bad at predictions. He said something true finally.
Because our country has to get back to work. They want to get back to work. You see that, whether it's a demonstration or just in talking to people. They're going to get back to work, and they're going to get back to work very fast. States are advanced. I look at Gavin Newsom. Newsom was very nice today. He wrote a beautiful statement about. We sent him a lot of things that he needed.
Yeah, okay. So the guy who asked the question about chloroquine, that's Philip Rucker. He's the one who wrote the book A Very Stable Genius. And that may be why Trump looked disgusted when he started to speak.
New York and New Jersey got hit very hard. They're doing very well. I spoke again with Governor Cuomo, with Governor Murphy. They're doing a great job. And here's the thing: we have to see they got hit hard. Everyone close together, tight in. People don't realize New Jersey is very tight. You realize that because you've been covering it for a long time, but very tight. New York obviously is very tight. They're doing a terrific job. I think for the most part, I'll be able to tell you when it's all over, but a lot of the governors have done a really terrific job. Some I don't think have, to be honest, but we'll be talking about it in the future. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a new interview today with Time Magazine, Dr. Fauci said that the U.S. is not in a situation where we can say we are where we want to be with regard to testing capacity. He said we need much more testing capacity as well as tests. So why do you keep saying we have a tremendous testing capacity? And do we have a national strategy that goes beyond tracking just what the states are doing?
The answer is yes, and the answer is, as you know, and as I've said many times, we're very advanced in testing. Other countries are calling us to find out what are we doing. And by the way, within 2 weeks, you'll see numbers and you'll see different forms of testing, just like we came up with the Abbott Laboratories machine, which gives it to you in 5 minutes that everybody wants. Everybody's asking, can we get that? But you can only make them so fast.
Remember, he talks about types
but
of
as you
tests
know,
and
we've
labs.
done more testing than every other nation combined.
Not per capita.
And
we're
that's a
42nd.
big statement. And, you know, when they talk about different tests and different things, we're also a bigger nation than most.
That's why per capita
And
is how
so
we
when they
discuss
look
it.
at statistics, because statistically we're doing phenomenally
42nd
in
in
terms
per
of
capita.
mortality, in terms of all of the different elements that you can judge. When you look, Germany and our
Mortality, we're 14th highest in the world per capita.
we are very accurate in the reporting of numbers. In fact, I'll go a step further. As you know, in New York, they actually added quite a few deaths to a list that was done in New York, and they added a number of deaths. We're very, very highly accurate. And then you look at certain lists of other countries. Some are so obvious just to look at, where obviously the number is ridiculous in the form of low, because they're not accurate counts. They're not even close to accurate counts. In fact, they're insulting to look at them. So we've done very well. Again, testing, we're doing very well on testing. We've tested far more than anybody else anywhere in the world.
That's a lie.
And within a short period of time, you'll be hearing about new tests that are coming out that are going to be incredible. Steve, go
Dr.
ahead.
Fauci, that we're just not there yet?
No, I don't agree with him on that. No, I think we're doing a great job on testing. I don't agree. If he said that, I don't agree with him. Yes.
Considering ways to ramp up production of that Abbott rapid test.
Yeah, well, they're doing it. I'll tell you, Steve, they're doing it at a level that they've never done it before. Abbott
It's actually
is a
hard to
great
keep up with the
company. It's
lies.
a very big,
There's so
highly
many.
respected company. They came up with this machine where you do it. I've done it both ways. I've done it this way, and I didn't like it, and I've done it the Abbott way, where you literally just touch, and 5 minutes later, you know the answer. And we use them in the White House. I think you folks have been given that opportunity, which is much more pleasant than the first way that they looked at you, right? We're making them hundreds of thousands of machines. The advantage to the other tests and the laboratory tests, so we can get millions and millions of those tests done. It takes a day or 2 days, but you know, because it's really a delivery situation more than anything else. The test itself goes quickly once it gets to the laboratory. But as we have found, and as we have, I think, shown everybody in the room, we have many laboratories. We have so many laboratories. Nobody. A lot of the governors did not know that we had this capacity, but we have many laboratories all over our country. Every state has laboratories, and some have a lot of them. So I think we will come up with things as time goes by. Again, when I started, we started with nothing, essentially. We started with a broken test, a test that didn't work. We started with a test that did very few people, not millions of people.
Remember, this is like weirdly blaming Obama for not having some kind of test for something that didn't exist when Obama was president. It's crazy.
The media would say, oh, you should have done 2 for each person. No matter what you do, it doesn't make any difference. It's just like the ventilators. I talk about it all the time. Nobody ever mentions ventilators. One of the hardest things are ventilators. And now we're making thousands a week, thousands of ventilators, and they're calling from Mexico. They're calling from many countries. I've received today 4 calls. Would it be possible to send ventilators? All right? I got 4 calls today. I got 3 calls yesterday. No country
Yes,
is
Mr. President.
equipped like
Yes.
we are. We have 11 different places making ventilators. Our country, as you know, doesn't need them now. Our governors are very happy. But that's different than tests, because with a test you can always say, oh, we need more. No, I think we've done incredibly well obviously with ventilators. We also have 500 million masks that are very shortly going to be here. We've made
we don't really have them,
millions of
right?
masks. We have ordered millions of masks that have arrived and been distributed. We gave one hospital in New York City 300,000 masks. Before the virus, they were using 10,000, and now we got them 300,000, and they got rid of them very quickly, which I sort of say, how did that happen? Why? Because they became very valuable, the masks. So I say, how did that happen? But we've done an amazing job, and we've worked with the governors. And when the governors weren't able, again, they're the first line. When they weren't able to get something like ventilators, they couldn't get ventilators. They could have bought them. You could have bought them, but many of them chose not to. So they all needed ventilators. We got the job done.
Everybody did the wrong thing.
I'll be introducing the team when we're finished with this whole nightmare, this whole curse, this whole plague. But the team that worked on the ventilators was incredible. And the team that and it's a little bit interchangeable, but the team that's working on the testing is truly an incredible team. These are brilliant people. And they're doing it for the country. They're not doing it for other reasons. Some have been very successful. They're doing it for the country.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the House has now passed, since you were here, the relief bill.
Right.
As
I'll be
you know-
signing it probably tonight.
As you know, there's no aid to states and localities in that bill. Mitch McConnell, of course, has talked about states seeking bankruptcy protection. He's also, his office referred to this as the idea of aiding states as a blue state bailout. What do you say to that? Do you agree with that, or do you agree with Governor Cuomo that that is a vicious attack on these states that
I
have
don't
been
think it's
hit
a
by?
vicious attack, but certainly some people do look at it that way. I've spoken to Mitch about it. I've spoken to numerous senators about it. And we're working with senators that are on the other side of the issue, and we'll see what happens. But
This whole
we're
blue
looking-
state bailout thing, it's like, this is a people bailout. There's more people in New York, right? New York has 8.4 million people. So they need more. And it happens to be a blue state, but it's a people bailout.
In all fairness, John, some states have not done very well for many years, long before the virus came. You know, you can't blame the plague, this horrible plague that came in, and all of a sudden, you know, they can't blame that. You look at Illinois, he's got a lot of problems long before the virus came in. And so we'll be talking about it. It'll be a subject for a period of time. And right now, we've made this incredible deal for the workers and for small business. And I'm very happy that Harvard didn't get covered. We actually never sent them the check.
Right.
But they were very nice about it.
There was no
We
money
never
to get
sent them
back.
the money. The old-fashioned way is the check. The new way is send them the money. And we didn't send them the money. And but they were very understanding, and they were very nice about it. So was Princeton, so was Stanford, so were a number of other schools that you just don't associate with this money. So were big companies, as you know many of them. It was a relatively small amount of money compared to the whole, very small amount of money compared. But we wanted to be fair. We wanted to go to the people that it's supposed to go to.
Are you open to this idea of state and local?
I'm open
these-
to ideas that are going to be great for the people of this country. And if we can help states, we're always going to help states. Now, there's different ways of helping states. Some ways are better than others. So we're looking. It is interesting that the states that are in trouble do happen to be blue. It is
Yes, 'cause
interesting.
they have more
If you
people.
look around, I mean, the states that
And the
seem
big
to have
cities.
the problem happen to be Democrat. And
New Jersey got hit by this,
but
this
New York
virus,
and New
or
Jersey were in a lot of trouble
Massachusetts.
long before the plague came.
Population
They were,
density.
they had a lot of problems long before the plague came. I spoke with Governor Cuomo about it. Spoke to.
So let me interject, because this is an important. You guys may come across this from weaponized disinformation sources in the future. They love to say, there's this guy Charlie Kirk. Okay, he's on Twitter saying crazy stuff. They say, the 10 cities that are worst off financially, the mayors are all Democrats. It's like, cities are more Democratic than they are Republican. So it's just a self-selection bias. That's what happens in cities.
Is it dangerous for you to make people think they would be safe by going outside in the heat, considering that so many people are dying in Florida, considering that this virus has had an outbreak in Singapore, places that are hot and
Here
are
we go.
humid?
Here we go.
Here we go.
The new headline is Trump asks people to go outside. That's dangerous. Here we go. Same old group. You ready? I hope people enjoy the sun. And if it has an impact, that's great. I'm just hearing this, not really for the first time. I mean, there's been a rumor that, a very nice rumor that you go outside in the sun or you have heat and it does have an effect on other viruses. But now we get it from one of the great laboratories of the world, I have to say. Covers a lot more territory than just this. This is probably an easy thing, relatively speaking, for you. I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure. That if you could, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. Again, I say
Yes,
maybe
Mr.
you can,
President.
maybe you
Yes,
can't.
yes.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good, you know what.
But sir, you're the president.
Deborah, have you ever heard of that? The heat and the light.
Oh, yeah.
Relative to
Heat lamps, heat
certain
lamps.
viruses, yes, but relative to this virus,
Not as a treatment. I mean, certainly fever
yeah.
is a good thing when you have a fever. It helps your body respond.
What a bailout.
But not as, I've not seen.
Yes, the defense
fever.
I think
mechanism
it's a
known
great
as
thing to
fever.
look at. I mean, okay.
Respectfully, sir, you're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
I'm the president and you're fake news. And you know what I'll say to you? I'll say very nicely, I know you well. I know you well because I know the guy. I see what he writes. He's a total faker. So are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just a suggestion from a brilliant lab by a very, very smart, perhaps brilliant man. He's talking about sun. He's talking about heat. And you see the numbers. So that's it. That's all I have. I'm just here to present talent. I'm here to present ideas.
Off the charts.
Because we want ideas to get rid of this thing. And if heat is good, and if
He's a
sunlight is
faker.
good, that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned. Go
Up
ahead.
is down,
Mr.
down is
President,
up.
You talked a moment ago about vaccines and that we're close. How close do you think the Oxford University study says they could have one by September? Do you think the pharmaceutical companies in the US around
They could have one of what?
they could have a vaccine ready, tested by
Oxford's one.
September?
Johnson & Johnson is working. They're also working together. You have many companies working together on a vaccine.
But then do you think they can scale up production and the pharmaceutical companies will be able to do that quickly?
We'll scale
What
it
if
up.
we
If
know?
we had a vaccine, it'll be scaled up very quickly. In fact,
He has no idea.
some of the companies, Johnson & Johnson is one, is scaling up already before they have the final answer.
In fact,
a
you
number
have
of
to do
companies
that.
are doing that. You'll
You
save a
have to
lot
do
of
that.
time. The normal is you scale up after. I have to say the FDA has been fantastic. Stephen Hahn, Dr. Hahn, has been fantastic. They're moving along rapidly.
Scaling.
Rapidly.
Would you say, would put a time scale on when you
No, I
think
don't want
it's-
to put a time scale because then the media, the so-called media, lamestream media, will say he said a time. I don't want to say times because every time I say a time, if you don't hit it, they'll say. So I don't want to talk about time.
Right.
But I will say that there's been tremendous progress made over the last month.
And can I just ask a very quick question? You spoke to Boris Johnson this week.
I
I
did.
just wonder how he sounded, how he was.
I did.
When do you think he'll be back at
He
work?
called me a few days ago. I will tell you, he sounded incredible. I was actually surprised. I thought it'd be like, "Oh, Donald, how are?" He
You thought
was
he'd sound
ready
like
to go.
Trump.
I could. I'm very surprised to tell you this. It's like the old Boris. Tremendous energy, tremendous drive. I was very surprised because he called me almost, pretty close to when he got out of the hospital.
Right.
I think he's doing great. I think he's doing great. He was so sharp and energetic. Pretty incredible. He's an incredible guy. He's a friend of ours and a friend of mine. He loves our country. He loves his country a lot.
Of course.
But he loves our country. He respects our country. And they're lucky to have him over there. Please.
Mr. President, you a couple days ago said that you might reach out to Kim Jong-un directly, but also that you were working to find out if those reports about him being in possible medical trouble were true. I'm wondering if you've either...
I hope he's not in medical trouble. I hope he's
Have
not.
you heard anything from
I've gotten
North
along
Korea?
very well with him. Look, here we are. You would have been in a war with North Korea if I didn't get elected president.
Wrong.
Remember, I was going to be
Lie.
the one that took us into war my first day in office, okay? Here we are. Look at what's happened. Withdrawal. We're bringing people home. We're not going to serve as policemen all over the world. I don't want to be policemen all over the world.
But have you been able to learn?
And yet I've rebuilt our
Question was,
military
have you
to a
heard
level
about
that
his
it's never been
condition?
built at before.
Have you
But
been
it's
able to get
never
more information?
recognized by
Still
the
trying
fake
to
news.
ask
Go
it.
ahead.
Have you been able to use that relationship to get more information about his status?
I think the report was incorrect. Let me just put it that way. I think the report was done by a network that was
I'm guessing he's pointing to CNN.
incorrect. I'm hearing they used old documents, but that's what I hear. I hear the report was an incorrect report.
He pointed to the CNN.
I hope it was an incorrect report.
When was the last time you heard from him?
I don't want to say.
Since you pointed to me, just a quick question about that. So you haven't made any contact, though, just to make sure?
With who?
The North Koreans.
I don't want to say. I won't say that.
Okay,
We have
so-
a good relationship with North Korea, as good as you can have. I mean, we have a good relationship with North Korea. I have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un, and I hope he's okay. And somebody would say, oh, that's terrible. No, it's not terrible. I hope he's okay. And I think it was a fake report done by CNN.
Wow.
Ask you a
What do you
question.
have? Go
So
ahead. No, that's enough. Go ahead.
That's enough
Yeah,
from
but
you.
that wasn't my question.
The problem is you don't write the truth. So, as far as I'm concerned, I want to go. I want to go to the next
Can I
one.
ask you a question about
No, not CNN, please. Go ahead.
The White House has not
You don't.
responded to these
I told you.
allegations from this Friday.
CNN is fake news. Don't talk to me. Go ahead, please.
But he says he was retaliated against, and that's why he was
Don't talk
removed from his
to me.
job. Do you have a response to
This is the
that?
president.
Okay, next question.
Mr. President, I have two questions, one on behalf of a
Oh my
colleague who's
God.
not here because of social
Just ask
distancing.
one, please.
First one, could you talk about your decision-making process with
Over my
Governor
what?
of Georgia
You yesterday
The controversy?
said. Well, you said yesterday
let
that
her
you
ask
told
the
the governor of Georgia
I
you were
did.
concerned.
I had a good
about-
talk with the governor of Georgia.
Earlier in the week, you spoke and you did not convey this kind of message. Was there a
I
change
did
in your
convey
thinking?
the message. I didn't like the fact that he's leaving certain things. I want the states to open more than he does, much more than he does. But I didn't like to see spas at this early stage, nor did the doctors. Is that a correct statement, Deborah?
Oh,
I didn't
yes,
like
Mr.
to see
President.
spas opening, frankly. I didn't like to see a lot of things happening, and I wasn't happy with it. And I wasn't happy with Brian Kemp. I wasn't at all happy.
Wow.
Because, and I could have done something about it if I wanted to, but I'm saying let the governors do it. But I wasn't happy with Brian Kemp. Spas, beauty parlors, tattoo parlors. That. And by the way, I want them to open. Oh, excuse me.
Your medical
Excuse me.
experts?
I want them to open, and I want them to open as soon as possible. And I
They
want the
gotta do it
state
right.
to open. But I wasn't happy with Brian Kemp. I will tell you that right now. Yeah, go ahead.
So are you surprised he defied you on that? Because
No,
you
he
made
didn't.
it clear.
No, he didn't defy me at all. That's your language. He didn't defy me. You know what happened? I said, you make your own decision. I told him that. I said, you're not in the guidelines, but I'm letting you make your own decision. But I want people to be safe, and I want the people in Georgia to be safe. And I don't want this thing to flare up because you're deciding to do something that is not in the guidelines. And I went to Deborah and Dr. Fauci and other people.
Where is
and they
Dr.
weren't
Fauci?
thrilled about it. And I could have stopped them, but I decided, and we all agreed, they got to watch it closely. So we'll see what happens. I told him very distinctly, I said, Mike was there, I said, you do what you think is best. But if you ask me, am I happy about it? I'm not happy about it, and I'm not happy about Brian Kemp. Go ahead.
A question for Dr. Birx, if I may, Mr. President, about the rate of the decline of the curve in the U.S. You and the Vice President tonight talking about meaningful progress, promising progress. Could you speak to the rate of decline of cases in the
If we could do
U.S.?
it quickly, that'd be great.
There is no decline.
If you're
You see it on the
satisfied with
charts.
the
I mean,
decline.
you have to ask the question, but you do see it on the
And,
charts.
and if you have any information from other countries that would inform us about the decline.
Yeah, so many of you, and I've spoken to all of you from this podium about there's weekends difference in reporting, often a spike on Monday. If you look at Mondays over Mondays, if you look at 7-day reporting, we are starting to go down. We had a long flat peak, largely driven, of course, by New York, which is about 45% or so of the cases. As New York goes down, so will the rest of the country have
Not
a
seeing it.
decline, even more accelerated. I want to say, though, we have had outbreaks. We've had outbreaks in specific prisons. We've had outbreaks in specific nursing homes. We've had outbreaks in specific plants. And when that happens, that adds 200, 300, 400 cases on that single date. So we track very carefully not only what the country's doing, but what each state is doing, each county is doing, and we look at delta changes across all of the counties so that we find early warning signals for these types of outbreaks, because we want the whole country to go down, but we also want to prevent the outbreaks before they occur.
Mr. President? Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Looking forward to November, to the election. Given the risk that the flu and the coronavirus there could be a problem. Do you think there is a risk that there will be lack of agreement, lack of legitimacy to the results in a very close election?
Wow.
And people start saying,
Good
well,
question.
a whole bunch of people couldn't go and vote because
Look,
they were
I can't
scared.
tell you what's going to happen in an election. Yeah, a great question. I can't tell you what's going to happen. We have a sleepy guy in a basement of a house that the press is giving a free pass to, who doesn't want to do debates because of COVID, and lots of things are happening, right? And I watched a couple of interviews, and I say, oh, I look forward to this. But they're keeping him sheltered because of the coronavirus. And he's not moving around. He's not moving too much. And then I watch what the press does to the Republican Party, and to me in particular. We had the greatest economy ever put together. We were doing, this is a month and a half ago.
This has
we
nothing
were
to do
doing
with it.
numbers likes of which we've never done.
Question was
African
about the
American,
legitimacy
Asian
of
American,
November.
Hispanic American, best employment numbers ever in the history of our country. Our employment numbers, the best in the history of our country, almost 160 million people. The stock market, record numbers, many, many times during my tenure. Many, many times. But now we have a country that we had to close because of this. And frankly, if we didn't close it, we
Remember,
would
the
have
question was about voting in November.
people possibly, but certainly we would have lost 1 million people. You take the high number and cut it in half again. But whether it would have been 600, 700, 800, you take a look at the travesty that there is. You take a look at this horrible, horrible scene of hospitals with bodies and black body bags, right? Multiply that times 10, 15, or even 20.
Question was about voting in November.
So we did the right thing. So far, we did the right thing. So far, we've called it right. We've mobilized like it was a military operation, and it was largely a military operation between ventilators and testing and so many other things. And we've had a lot of good partners, not all good partners, but we had a lot of good partners. Gavin Newsom today thanked us very much. Gavin Newsom, California, thanked us so much.
Question was voting in November.
Keep going and keep doing a good job. We got it to him today. Tomorrow we're getting him even more. Would have been harder for him to get it than us. We agreed to get it. We got it on time. He said promises made, promises kept. He actually said that in a statement today. We've done a good job. We've gotten very little credit for the great job we've done because of the media, because the media is not an honest media, in my opinion, much of it. Not all of it. We have some great reporters that I have tremendous respect, but much of the media is not honest. So I can't tell you about the election.
We know.
You have a Democrat Party, and you have a large portion of the media automatically giving a guy a pass. He's been given a pass. Whether or not he's going to be the nominee, I have no idea. But he's getting a pass. And the media isn't covering the great job that we've done, whether it's Mike's task force, which has been incredible.
It's not been a great job
Whether
done.
it's the way we mobilized in a warlike operation to build these incredibly complex and very expensive ventilators. They're very expensive.
Ventilators are complicated. Question was about voting in November.
The job we've done has been an amazing job. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about the generals, the admirals, Deborah and Tony and now Bill. I mean, something we hadn't heard today. So I can't tell you what's going to happen with the election. I think that had we not gone through a fake Russia deal,
oh no,
an impeachment hoax, it was a total hoax. From the day I got elected, but you know it wasn't the day, it was many months before I got elected. This has been a witch hunt that was illegal. It was an illegal witch hunt. It was illegal.
I think I have bingo. Illegal
and
witch
with all
hunt,
of that,
fake
I'm
news,
doing
impeachment
fine.
hoax.
Because the people see we're doing a great job. And you know what? We'll continue to do a great job. If we had an honest press, this country would be even greater. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And whistleblower complaint, Mr. President. That's what Rick Bride says he's going to file. Are you concerned about that?
Cool handkerchief, Dr. Birx. Arguably the wackiest press conference so far. Donald Trump alluding to the possibility of inserting either disinfectants or light and heat into the inside of the body. Certainly not something you would likely have heard from Barack Obama or from George W. Bush or William Jefferson Clinton or George H.W. Bush, or, I mean, I think you guys sort of understand. William Howard Taft maybe would have asked about injecting bleach, but I can't say that too many other presidents would have done that. Thanks to everybody for joining me. Please remember, anywhere that you are watching, you can follow or like, and it's free, and it really helps us in these tough times. We will be back with clips and all of that other stuff very, very soon. I appreciate you joining me today.